You see this right here, folks? You know, this big bright wall behind me. This is pretty representative of how my whole last 2 weeks have gone, where I'm just smashing into this wall over and over and over again. So today, our goal is to smash through this wall in another episode of Statech Industry. Now, we're not going to talk about how much work it went into making these rainbow bricks just to do a one-off opening here, folks. But that was a very metaphorical wall, because what I had to do was upgrade all of my storage buffers to relatively large amounts, specifically so that we could come over here and upgrade all of this to 512 so that we can get this processor up to 64, as well as the new machine casing. And let me tell you, with the way things were running, I had to let this run for something around 24 hours in actual real-life time to get all the buffers to refill, as I was finding issues throughout our supply chain. And frankly, there's still one that I haven't fixed. But I guess let's start at the beginning, huh? And the beginning started with me not having 100,000 aluminum ingots. It started with me having 0, as well as 0 bauxite. You notice I've got a supply of it now. But well, all of this ran down, and I had to significantly upgrade our blast furnace setup. And what are you doing back there? Shoo! Anyhow, as I was saying, we had to upgrade our blast furnace setup because part of what was happening is the overclocks on all the blast furnaces were running out because they weren't getting enough power. So we changed this to pipe all of the power in from these HV steam turbines right here to receive steam directly from the AE2 network. And then that let us wire the whole thing all the way down to the end here and not rely on the entangled tanks anymore, which were chronically running out of steam because we were getting way past capacity now that we're on HV steam turbines, because it can only transfer 16 buckets at a time. So once the acceleration cards caught up and started pumping all the steam in, this had no trouble keeping up. I've had to add a couple of these as we found even more bottlenecks and went down the road here, and had to add more and more turbo upgrades to this system, which is now eating up a ton of power. But as you saw, now we don't have any problems with aluminum or bauxite. But as our buffers started filling up, we started running into a problem with stainless steel not keeping up anymore. Now, thankfully, that we'd already mostly solved thanks to the energy upgrades, and I just had to add turbo upgrades to the blast furnaces here as well as the coolers upstairs. So that ended up not being a major problem. What is a major problem and is still actively an issue is silicon, because while we're at a decent supply now, I had completely run out of silicon plates. And you can notice that I've got the P-doped and N-doped plates in here now. I switched those over to be used because while I have 2,000 transistors now, this runs out really, really, really quickly, even with things running full blast if I'm having to fill up a buffer of the processing units. So that is still an ongoing problem. That's the first thing we run out of once we start doing massive batch processing. For now, we should be okay to move forward, at least for a bit. But up here is where we added the chemical reactors to handle the plates where I used to be processing tungsten. My biggest problem with the silicon, however, isn't the fact that we are running out of silicon so much as we're running out of the plates, because we're still on wireless power back here. So we have a very hard limit on how fast we can overclock things in this system. For most of the machines, it's somewhere between 2 and 4 turbo upgrades, depending on how much power they take. But the reality is much like the black. Why are you over there also? Stop escaping from my mob farm. You had better at least have the decency to drop more than one ender pearl this time. There we go. So yeah, we have that problem. There were also a whole bunch of other like minor bottlenecks as we were fixing individual machines and speeding stuff up, but we do have a decent buffer of stuff. The one other thing that we have run out of, however, is right over here, and that's the boss mob crusher, because we ran out of wither bones. Because if we look at the wither skeleton model here, it only has a 50% chance of dropping the wither bone, and we somehow ran out of them. So this is going to be a while back, because the wither bones are used to make the wither skeleton model, and they're coming from my actual mob farm downstairs. So this will eventually hopefully backfill itself, and these only have a 5% chance to consume, so it's weird that we kind of ran out, but it's not the end of the world. It's just slowing things down. Although now that I'm looking at this down here, it actually isn't coming from my mob farm, so maybe I really just actually ran out. That's weird. Uh-oh. Yeah, this is something I might have to go figure out why it's busted and fix. It really shouldn't have run out of the withered bones. That's strange. I'm going to have to go figure that out, but that's not important for today's episode. The other thing you might notice is that I did a whole bunch of decorating and fixed a lot of the walkways here, because now we have the lamps and the railings and the decoration and the trim along the walls. So things are looking a little better in here, as long as we don't look like up there where there's no walkway currently, or the back wall. Or I don't know, the platform in the wall that I didn't finish over here. Why is there another one? Seriously, stop escaping. Anyhow, my goal for today is to start solving the power problem finally and move into the nuclear age. And by moving to the nuclear age, I of course mean the nuclear reactor, right? Right? Oh, no, we're going to go do this dragon egg thing instead because that's more interesting. Yeah, I don't want to deal with the nuclear reactor. We are, however, going to work on infrastructure for it today because that's going to take a while to set up. But the dragon egg siphon lets us power off of dragon eggs. And honestly, it's not too bad to make other than two things. We need iridium alloy plates, which requires the alloy ingot from the implosion compressor, which is made from iridium plates, which is also made in the implosion compressor from a mixed iridium ingot, which is just blast-proof ingot. So we're mostly okay on that front for now. And then the Lapatronic energy orb, which is a lot more expensive than it appears because we need 8 Lapatron crystals, which each requires 2 digital circuits, which we've got a decent stock of since I'm storing 512 of them. But it all adds up and, eats through our backlog of resources. In addition to setting up those 2 implosion compressors, we're going to actually set up a third one because we also need the nuclear mix plate to make the fission reactor. And this is there's cadmium plates, beryllium plates, and blast-proof alloy plates. We don't have these plates, but we have the materials for these because one of these is a byproduct of electrolyzing emerald dust, which is started doing just to get more silicon into the system. And the other is a byproduct of centrifuging moissanite dust, which we were already doing to get the neodymium. So we'll also have a decent stock of cadmium, which we already had for making the batteries to make the advanced machine hull anyways. So I guess we need to get started by making materials this episode. I also threw up some of my armor sets and started decorating this area because it should at least look pretty, right? And even if we're not going to use those armors again, we did make them all. And that's what happens when you forget to press record when you intended to do a time lapse. So we don't always get it done right. This is what happens when you take a week off and forget what you're doing anymore. But that brings me to making the Lapatronic energy orb, which, as I mentioned, is just a whole bunch of Lapatron crystals, which are already making our 82 system, and a highly advanced machine hull. So just chuck that into the assembler where the other ones are and kick off one pretty expensive job because, while I do have a bunch of these cash now, this is still expensive to make. It's also going to take quite a while to make because it needs to spin up the assembler that is not overclocked at all. And with that, we now have the Lapatronic energy orb made, which means we should just be able to mash the button and have this. Oh, we don't have tungsten plates. Well, thankfully there's not a whole lot of call for these, so I'll just make a half stack of them and call that good. But like I said, now we can smash the button and we have the Dragon Egg Energy Siphon. The problem is we only have the one Dragon Egg. If only there were a way to make more of them. However, this has a complication. And the complication, ironically, is not the Dragon model itself, it's these N crystals. Because N crystals take gas tiers to make. And while I can make them with the chemical reactor here, this recipe seems a little exorbitant to make when I can just mob crush them. Although the gas model also takes gas tiers, so this is a similar situation with the Wither Skeleton one where I could potentially run out if I am not prepared enough for this. I think it should be okay unless there's some critical error with the mob grinder that I'm not aware of. But, I haven't even played my new toy yet to see how it works. Let's put this down real fast, and I think the egg goes on top of it. Yep, and there we have quite a bit of power. Question is, does this count as EV or HV? Can I extract this out with HV cables or not? Oh, it sure is populating. So that looks like it's fine. This is basically the same as 2 HV steam turbines. So despite showing up in the EV error in the quest book, it's basically an HV machine. But this is actually a fairly good means to replace our steam production with eggs for now until we get to nuclear fission and then fusion. Except for the fact that now I have to get the egg back again. There. Now my initial problem here is that I don't actually have any gas tiers, though, to start this whole process off with, so I guess we're going to the nether. But hey, at least I can fly now. That should make finding them a little less tedious than before. Assuming I don't run out of power mid-air here and just plunge into the lava and then just have to run on top of it because of the boots. But I am packing Lapatron crystals with me to store some backup energy. This does drain pretty fast, though. But hey, Fortune 10 should only mean that I only need to find a handful of these total. Oh, I've never actually seen these before. These are actually really nice looking blocks. There we go. That took longer than I wanted to discuss. But I only got 2. That's moderately disappointing. So many striders, so few ghasts. Alright, I think I'm just going to call 11 enough because this was a giant pain. Got a couple more withered bones while I was here, though. Although I'm thinking about those might not be the right things. No, they totally are. All right, and now we have a functional wither mob crusher with a bare minimum of models made for it. But we've got it started, it's eating everything up, and I'm powering it via the Dragon Egg. I actually removed my steam generator that was down over here to get rid of the tank and just power it straight off of the egg now, off of this battery. As long as the battery starts filling up soon, we should probably be okay. I'm hoping I don't need to augment it, but it is just filling up this energy hatch right now. I think that's the main obstacle. The rest of these seem to be getting power just fine. The real obstacle is just going to be making sure that we are generating enough gas tiers versus the models that are in theory being consumed, but I think we're okay. Now, it'll take a little bit for those to catch up, but in the meantime, it's now time to go make the Ender Dragon Boss Crusher and the model for that as well. Now, to be clear, we do still have the withered SOC backed up because of the lack of wither skeleton skulls, so I need to figure out what's going on with that for sure. Now that we did get some wither bones to kick that back off again, because without these, I can't make the models, though. And I don't see any withered bones sitting in here making more models, so that's a little on the worrying side. I'm almost wondering if they're getting trashed somewhere along the line, because that seems problematic. Alright, so it seems like we've got production of these underway, which is good because I need another one of these. It looks like they were probably running the whole time, just poorly, but they were being eaten up by this one making the wither models, which aren't actually currently running anyways. It's just backfilling the models. So we just need to hurry up and snatch this one out of the next machine when it pops out, and finally let this backfill. I did come down here and lubricate both the ghast and the wither skeleton ones after adding turbo upgrades to get them going much faster, so this looks like the production speed's actually pretty good right now. Although the skull rate is pretty poor, but we knew that going in. Alright, and now we have the mob crusher for the Ender Dragon done as well. This actually went pretty quick because I overthought things and realized I can mostly just let this run. Because the Ender Dragon model doesn't require the withered SOC, it only required one to make the boss crusher. This just requires end crystals. And now that we have infinite gas tiers, I mean, this just isn't a problem. Now we can just let it grind out the dragon eggs that we want. The only really caveat is that this takes molten endurium, and we don't have a ton of it because I mostly stopped making it because we have a fair chunk of the ingots sitting in storage and a couple thousand buckets of it if we ever do need it. Because previously we were running a deficit on the liquid ender due to the ender pearls themselves. And looking at it, we still haven't surpassed that deficit. We still are only sitting at the limit that we've got set on a level emitter to keep them there. So if this actually ever gets more than 63, then we'll have filled up our AE2 storage and finally gotten out of that deficit there. But if it becomes an issue, we can always turn it back on. And I'm only ever going to keep a stack of the eggs around anyways. And the other problem is there's this dragon's blood that I think we just need to void because as far as I know, there's absolutely no use for it whatsoever. So, you know, we probably should just slap the trash can down and start venting it now before I forget to do this, huh? But let's go take a look at, wow, that filled up super fast. And it does look like the eggs can stack to, wow, 64 seems unlikely, but we'll grab that for now and we'll go toss that into a drawer along with the dragon's breath. Although I'm also now wondering if I should just vent the dragon's breath. I'm probably going to have to put a lava bucket on this because I don't see a whole lot of uses here for it that aren't just potions. But I guess we can just shove these in where we've got the other mob things going right now. And then I probably need to turn off burning that because I want this to shut off when it gets 64 anyways. And then we can put the dragon's breath in there, but not without a drawer upgrade. There we go. And I probably need a drawer downgrade on the eggs or we're going to end up with too many eggs. I mean, realistically, if we get more than 64, that's going to be probably way more than we're ever going to need, because if I've used that many before we actually get to nuclear power, I've probably done something really, really, really wrong here. But the important part is we can now make a couple more of these Dragon Egg energy siphons. Our biggest thing slowing us down here was going to be our Iridium supply. Because while we have 53 of the plates right now, we have none of the powder left right now, so it's slowly trickling in. This will slowly max out at 64. But if we start burning through it, that's not going to last very long at all. I do have some ore I can process, and honestly, it does make a fair chunk of Iridium, and I probably should do that just on principle right now while I'm thinking about it, because as I've mentioned in the past, we can manufacture Iridium from UU matter, which we haven't gotten to quite yet. Although we probably could, and we probably should, because one of the things holding us back was the Laprotonic Energy Orb, and it is, you know, kind of infrastructure week here, just getting things ready to get started on nuclear power anyways, and that will actually help us out with the Iridium. So, I guess we should get on that, huh? All right, so the upside is we just have to make all of these pieces for the matter fabricator, and we can pretty much just toss all of this into our AE2 system. The only thing that's actually kind of expensive is this one-time recipe for the energy flow chip, because it takes Laptron crystals and an iridium plate, but we only need one recipe of this to make this. The complication lies in the quest, where if we want to actually unlock it, we have to do the large advanced components first, which they're not hard, they're just very, very, very expensive. So I'm a little leery of setting this up, but we should at least make a handful to at least pass this quest, huh? All right, and so I've got the large advanced motor and pump made here, and I realized I never explained something. I have all of these levers staggered here because I forgot that this passes the redstone signal into this block with the redstone control module. When I had them sitting next to each other, like up here, this lever would shut off this machine also, which, you know, is not exactly helpful if you want some of them running and some of them not. But staggered out like that, they work fine if they don't have redstone control modules set in them. So this layout is working fine. Now, I don't have these auto outputting into my storage system yet, although I should grab a couple so I can go do that. Because while I'm okay with having them backfill up to 64, I don't want them doing it right now. I need to get the matter fabricator done for this episode, and then I can let these run uninhibited and take up all of my resources, since it's going to eat up all of the processing units and probably spike my electrical usage throughout my whole base. Which, you know, looking at my steam going down like that means that I'm probably cutting it a little close to cut this over to egg power anyway. But we have enough to last us quite a while right now. So I guess let's go set up my AE2 recipes for the matter fabricator's subcomponents. Whew, and I need to go make some more molecular assemblers, but we have just enough because I only think I have to add these 3 patterns. Right? Should just be able to request this and find out that we're missing lazurite plates. But it looks like that's all that we're missing. And lazurite plates are made from lazurite dust, which is made from lapis. So I guess we need to go grind some of this up. And you know what, since we're only ever really going to use it for Tech Reborn stuff that we're going to rarely use, I will just put a centrifuge here with my AE2 system and make it an on-demand thing. Not necessarily the most graceful solutions, but this should at least get the job done, huh? Alright, this time for sure. Alright, so this wasn't the smartest idea I've ever had because I forgot how slow centrifuges were. I didn't have any upgrades in here, so it couldn't overclock to start with, and I started 4 of the dragon egg siphons, which dramatically added to the load because that requires a lot of the same materials. That wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done, but it's slowly getting there. Alright, so I've got the matter fabricator finally made. It took a little bit longer than I was hoping for because I was, you know, not entirely smart. I've also got 1 dragon egg energy siphon with me. I've got another one baking that we're going to need to power this for now. And I got a few other things prepped for this, including a handful of recyclers and a packer to make scrap boxes to feed scrap into the matter fabricator. This assumes this all works the way that I think it does. I'm probably going to need to make upgrades to these machines too, but let's get this set up first to see how this works, because I'm not familiar with Tech Reborn's version of this. And of course, right where I decide to build, my trunk sits, so we need to do something about that as well. Oh, as well as a pile of endermen. Alright, so I have a very, very basic setup going. I've got a Mark V cobblestone generator feeding cobblestone into a bunch of recyclers. The recyclers are then sending the scrap into this packer up here, which is packing up into scrap boxes. Scrap boxes are currently not being pulled out because I wanted to see how the mass fabricator does with just a single dragon egg feeding it. And in the time it took me to set this up, it's only gotten up to 79% charged because all it's doing is eating raw power right now. There are also no upgrades at all on the recyclers right now, so I'm just seeing how this works. So far, the cobblestone generator is keeping up just fine with all of the supply though. So I guess the next step is to extract out of the packer, not that I can reach that very easily, and put it into the matter fabricator now. And then quickly run back around the other side to see if we have to configure sides, because of course we do. Oh, and for all of the slots even. That's great. But there we go, auto input, which it looks like I have to do on every single one of these slots, which may only matter if I have super fast packers anyways, because this eats them immediately. But there we go, those scrap boxes got us our very first UU matter, so that's actually useful because now we can start creating iridium. Or can we? Because no, to create the iridium, we need to actually go catch up on something we didn't do last time, which was finish up the molten nether star step, because we need that to feed the iridium. Now that said, I did start making the models again for this, so I probably should turn this back on. And apparently remute it, because that's gross. Because we're going to need a supply of this liquid nether star. I probably should dump this into an ender tank at this point and send this over to processing. Because as a general reminder, we need to put this through an EBF with impure liquid nether star and some platinum tiny dust to create the molten nether star. And thankfully we use this up in tiny amounts at a time, so this shouldn't be a huge deal. My biggest obstacle at this point is where do I fit more EBFs, because that wall's completely full unless I push this wall back some more. And I'm not doing that right now, so I think we need to find a new home for EBFs because we're almost going to have to make more anyways. I don't want to put them up here because this is where the implosion compressors are, and I don't know how many more of these I'm going to need other than almost certainly some more. Maybe I can put them over here on this wall for now. But my symmetry, it's not down there where it belongs. I wasn't expecting to run into this problem. But needs must, so I guess we're going to prop up a new wall over here. I did also realize that if I actually do run out of wither bones, I can do that in EBFs also, which I also didn't have room for and didn't really want to set this up. But thankfully, the wither skeleton mob crusher appears to be doing its job because we are completely maxed out on the bones now. So I don't think that was the problem. I think I just did something foolish at some point. Anyhow, I better get the liquid nether star set up and maybe go make some upgrades and maybe test out the mass fabricator a bit more. Well, I just ran into something weird just as I came back over here to look. You notice how this dragon egg energy siphon's at 100? It should not be. It should be at 0 if this works the way I think it does. But this is showing as fully charged and it's not progressing. I think it's waiting on scrap now instead of running off of power, which seems odd to me. Yeah, you see how it got scrap and it immediately jumped up and it's not running off the power. So I don't know how this thing works. Apparently doesn't work the way I'm used to. But that said, the scrap feeds this a lot faster anyway, so maybe I'll just move the power over. This is using some power, so maybe I do need to leave this plugged in. But maybe I don't need to leave it segregated from the system because I don't think this is going to draw the power out of the other one anymore. Well, it turns out that 4 overclockers here causes this to go in super speed mode, so this is going quite a bit faster now. Although we still need 9 at a time for the electric packer to do its thing, but this is going at a decent clip now, and we are getting a bit more UU matter. It's still not amazing. But the whole point is to make it passive, and if we need to, we can add more recyclers, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing here to speed this up even more. We may need to add another packer or put more upgrades into it and or another cobblestone generator, but we'll cross those bridges when we need to get to. We're almost certainly going to need more dragon eggs down here, though. Furthermore, I would like to deny any allegations that I'm doing all of this to avoid building those EBFs. I need to do something about these service crystals. Every time I fly over here, I get a ton more because it keeps breaking them and not picking them up because it's full. I'm sure that's not causing lag at all. You know what? There is a solution to this, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me to burn them there. That should solve that problem. All right, fine, I did it. But I did it a little bit differently this time because I hooked it up to Dragon Power, and I decided I wanted to try to make it a little more efficiently built up here so that we can line the dragon eggs along the back. And I wanted to hook it up to the AE2 system, but this necessitated the fact that I was going to have a power hatch in the center here. I suppose I could have put it at the end, but I decided to check out the ME wire, and I am disappointed to say that this cannot hook up to export or import buses, so it doesn't really save space. It just lets you cross the cables. So I'll be able to lay a power trunk down this row right here and still be able to use ME inputs here. I could have just gone over the cable too, I suppose. But it was just in the interest of experimentation to see how that actually worked. I am still bringing this in via Entangled Tank over here instead of via the AE2 system because I really don't feel the need to have thousands and thousands and thousands of buckets of the impure nether stars in here because that just seems relatively pointless. But now that we have all of these things going, I may have just remembered that I had a whole bunch of overclockers that I need to go plug in. Oops. Well, that's going to cause a dragon egg problem as well, because I'm going to need more power down there now. Well, you know, plugging them doesn't seem to be tapping out the dragon egg, so I think we are okay right now. Although I realized I am 8 short because I somehow didn't count right. Oh no, I just didn't pick them up. Well, it looks like we have enough power to keep this going. This doesn't seem to be tapping out either of these. That was not the result I was expecting here, because if you come into these and hover over the energy bar and hit shift, it says that it's using 512E, but I'm starting to think the E on Tech Reborn does not equate to the EU from modern industrialization in this pack, and they're not quite the same. There's probably like a 4 times multiplier or something. It might be converting it from RF and doing it wrong, or displaying it wrong or something. I don't know, but I guess we are mostly set up here, huh? The question is, how fast is this actually making these scrap boxes? We're still keeping up with this speed-wise, so I think we're okay with the turbo upgrades I have in here for now. Just comes down to how many more recyclers do I want to add. I mean, the answer is going to be yes or all of them, but we'll see how much effort I want to put in. Because right now we're already up to 300 and some UU matter. although it does use them 6 at a time for making the iridium ore, but like any iridium ore coming in is a bonus at this point. Because I'm realizing I didn't show this because we can get it with the titanium drill along with uranium, but the chance on uranium's not that great. It's a 1 in 5 per drill, but the iridium's only 5%. That's 1 in 20. There's no way that this isn't already faster than that drill would be. Not to mention that I can also make uranium this way, although I need moss, which I'm not currently making. Although it looks like I can do it with UU matter here as well, but that seems awfully expensive. I probably should just make a normal moss farm at that point. Or figure out some other way to do it. There's got to be some reasonable way here. Either way, we'll worry about that if that becomes an issue, because I'm starting to think it may not be. Or it might actually be a huge issue if I start needing to make a plutonium breeder and it requires way more than I would expect. Do I even have uranium? Oh man, I've even got uranium. Who knows if this is enough to get me through what I need though. Who am I kidding? We need to jump straight to this probably, huh? And maybe there, maybe there, and maybe there, there. I don't know. What I do know is I need 32 more of these though. And a whole lot more piping. As well as I should also note that while I'm setting these up, we can go into our existing ones, hit configure slots, hit Control C, and go into one of these, go back into configure slots and hit Control V and it will start working. It's still a bit clunky, but it does work at least. Oh, but apparently we do need another cobblestone generator now because this isn't really keeping up. It's definitely going to have problems as soon as we get these speed upgrades for these other ones anyways. I may need 2 of these actually, but they take a while to make. Oh, and there we go. Even without the speed upgrades and the other recyclers, the packer's now out beyond capacity too, so we're going to have to add another packer at least. Well, I guess the last thing we should do here is actually get the iridium starting to be created while I wait for everything else to get made. But there we go. Now we have iridium being made very, very slowly. And yes, I already have a furnace set up for it downstairs to grind up the stuff that I had sitting in my storage to begin with. So we should at least be getting a bit more reliable supply of iridium through this going forward. So that should help out quite a bit. In the long term, at least, assuming I haven't been lied to in the past. So, not exactly the exciting week I had hoped for, but hey, Dragon Power, right? Right? That's something, isn't it? Anyhow, if you found this episode interesting or entertaining, please consider like or subscribe if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Just